In finance, there's a concept few people warn you about. It's called the peak earnings trap. Most of us are taught the same story. Work hard in your 20s, climb aggressively in your 30s, reach your career peak in your 40s, and if you do it right, everything should be fine. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The peak is where the view is best, and also where the wind is strongest, balance is hardest, and the only direction left is down. Your 40s are not decided by how much money you make. They are decided by how well you manage decline. This is the only decade of your life where two curves peak at the same time. Your income curve reaches its highest point. Your life pressure curve, family, children, health, responsibility, peaks alongside it. If you fail to separate these two curves, you don't slowly slide backward in your 50s. You fall. Most people assume that high income equals safety, but high income without structure is fragile. It creates a lifestyle that depends on your peak performance lasting forever. And that assumption is the real danger. Because when income stops growing, or starts shrinking, expenses don't politely follow it down. They stay. They harden. They demand consistency from a system that is no longer stable. At 40, the question is no longer, how much can I earn next year? The real question is, how exposed am I if this is the highest I ever earn? If your entire financial life is built on the assumption of constant upward motion, then reaching the top doesn't make you safe. It makes you vulnerable. This is why so many people look successful at 45 and feel trapped at 55. They didn't fall because they failed. They fell because they didn't prepare for gravity. In your 20s, your most valuable asset isn't money. It's your ability to work, to adapt, to learn fast, and to earn more in the future. That ability is called human capital, and early in life it feels unlimited. You have time, you have energy, you can recover from mistakes. At 40, that changes. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but structurally. Your human capital doesn't disappear. It starts depreciating. And the danger is that most people don't notice it happening. Technology doesn't go after beginners. It goes after people who are expensive. Artificial intelligence doesn't replace interns. It replaces experienced professionals whose value comes from organizing, managing, and coordinating information. At 40, you're often at your highest salary level, which also means you're the most tempting cost to remove. You're no longer competing with younger workers. You're competing with systems that don't age, don't get tired, and don't negotiate. At the same time, your income stops accelerating. In your 20s, doubling your income feels possible. In your 30s, it still happens. In your 40s, income flattens. It becomes predictable, stable, comfortable. But comfort is misleading, because while income becomes flat, life doesn't. Expenses keep rising. Children, education, housing, healthcare, commitments made during better years. Your income turns into a calm lake while expenses rise like a tide. And that's not stability, that's erosion. Here's the reality most people avoid looking at. If at 40, nearly all of your income still depends on your labor, your entire financial life has a single point of failure: you. It doesn't matter how high the number is. It doesn't matter how respected your position sounds. A system that depends on one aging asset is fragile, and fragile systems don't survive pressure. This is why the strategy must change. At this stage, your job is no longer to earn more. It's to convert labor into ownership, to turn human capital into financial capital, before time makes that conversion more expensive. Because once this decline starts, you can't reverse it. You can only reduce how much your future depends on it. Those who understand this in their early 40s build calm. Those who ignore it build shock. Not because they failed, but because they waited too long. At some point in your 40s, money stops being a math problem and turns into an emotional one. This is the decade where you become part of the sandwich generation, caught between two forces pulling in opposite directions. Above you, aging parents. Below you, growing children. Both need support. Both feel urgent. And both arrive at the exact moment your financial flexibility is shrinking. This is where rational planning quietly collapses. You don't overspend because you're careless. You overspend because guilt replaces logic. You start compensating. You buy your children what you never had: better schools, more activities, a higher lifestyle. It feels like love. It feels like responsibility. But financially, it's something else. It's borrowing money from your 70-year-old self to comfort your 40-year-old emotions. Every dollar you lock into permanent lifestyle upgrades now raises the minimum income you'll need for the rest of your life. And that number never comes back down easily. At the same time, another risk sits quietly in the background: your parents' health. Most people assume medical crises are rare events. They're not. One serious illness in your mid-40s can erase decades of savings if you haven't prepared for it structurally. Not emotionally, structurally. Without insurance, without reserves, without boundaries. A single health emergency doesn't just cost money, it freezes your financial decision making. You stop investing. You stop taking calculated risks. You shift into survival mode. And survival mode is expensive. This is how people with high incomes become financially paralyzed. Not because they lack intelligence, but because too many emotional obligations arrive at once, and money is forced to respond instead of lead. In your 40s, generosity without limits is not kindness. It's financial self-harm. If you don't design guardrails now, clear budgets, clear caps, clear priorities, your future will be dictated by emergencies instead of intention. And once money becomes reactive, freedom disappears fast. The biggest mistake people make in their 40s is confusing ownership with wealth. They look successful, they feel established, but financially they're more exposed than they realize. A larger house, a newer car, a higher-end lifestyle. None of these create freedom. They consume it. These are not assets. They are obligations disguised as rewards. Every upgrade locks in a higher burn rate, a higher monthly number that must be fed, no matter what happens to your income. At 40, this is dangerous. Because unlike your 30s, you no longer have unlimited time to recover from mistakes. Lifestyle inflation at this age doesn't just feel expensive. It changes the math of your entire future. Most people think retirement requires a massive number. It doesn't. It requires a gap. The gap between what you spend and what your assets produce without you working. That gap is freedom. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If your lifestyle grows at the same speed as your income, you can earn more every year and still feel trapped forever. High income doesn't create independence. Low dependency does. Someone who earns half as much but keeps expenses fixed will reach freedom sooner than someone earning double who keeps upgrading everything. At 40, every lifestyle decision becomes permanent. You're not just buying comfort, you're setting the minimum income your future self must earn to survive. And once that number gets too high, options disappear. You can't downshift. You can't take risks. You can't walk away. This is how people become high-income prisoners. The math is simple but brutal. If at 40 you freeze your lifestyle at your 30-year-old spending level while your income doubles, you win the game quietly. If you let expenses chase income upward, you work harder every year just to stand still. And standing still feels like progress, until the moment income stops growing. That's when the illusion breaks, and by then, it's usually too late to reverse without pain. At 40, retirement doesn't become a dream. It becomes a design problem. And design problems require restructuring, not hope. The first shift is acceptance. You have to accept that your peak earning years are limited. Not emotionally, mathematically. Planning your future on the assumption that you'll earn more at 50 than you do at 40 is a fragile strategy. The smarter assumption is this: this might be as good as it gets. So the question changes. Not how much more you can make, but how much of what you make you can keep, convert, and protect. The second shift is recognizing health as capital. A weak body at 60 will consume money at a terrifying speed. Hospital bills don't care about your net worth. Chronic illness doesn't negotiate. Every dollar you save but don't protect with health is a temporary win. This is why physical fitness, sleep, prevention, and insurance are not lifestyle choices in your 40s. They are financial strategies, high-return strategies. The third shift is structural income. At 40, you shouldn't be chasing opportunities. You should be owning systems, cash-flowing real estate, dividend-producing equities, intellectual property, businesses that don't collapse when you stop showing up every day. Not speculation, not shortcuts, structures. Because structures don't rely on motivation. They rely on design. And design is what survives aging. Here's the final truth most people miss. A comfortable retirement is not a gift from fate. It's a result of architecture. At 40, you are the architect. If you build a beautiful house with weak foundations, high income, high lifestyle, no assets, it will collapse when the storms of aging arrive. Stop looking at your monthly balance. Stop measuring success by income alone. Start measuring your life in time. How many months could you live if you stopped working today? That number matters more than your salary. Because money's real purpose is not to impress, it's to buy you freedom before time runs out.